because like if you're telling them to throw a putter or a mid because they don't have the arm speed yet, but you can't even throw a putter or mid correctly, then yeah, like I'm not going to listen to you either. Give me the driver. But if you can show them you can throw a putter 300, 320 feet, they're probably going to listen to you because they're going to be like, wow, like he knows what he's talking about. She knows what she's doing.
I mean, we all know the wind plays a factor, but also things like, the quality of the tee pad and how much room you have to do a run up. If I'm going to try and crush on something, but, there's a slight downhill slope on the tee pad, that's going to throw me off. I would just say that if you're thinking about it, stop. Just stop thinking about it and just do it. And all it takes is showing up, and all it takes is making a decision.
Let's say, I'm a guy or gal out there and I'm kind of in a situation like that. Let's say I'm in rural Montana and there is no disc golf for women out there. How do I go about setting up a league or a club or something like that?
So hi, I'm Lauren Campbell. I am a disc golfer who's been playing for about a year, and you are listening to the Chain Clankers podcast.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the podcast. Thanks again for listening. We appreciate you guys a ton. It's December, another year. It's off season. Unless you're in Florida, like our next listener, you're probably bundled up and just trying to make it to the course after work with, what little sunshine we have every day. But we really appreciate you guys coming back for another episode. Really fun one for you guys today. Here's what you can expect.
Yeah, and if you're listening to this show, it's obviously wintertime. It's the off season. You're listening because you want to get better. And that is exactly what we're doing today. Today, we're talking to Lauren Campbell. She's an incredible person and a really, really, truly good influence in the disc golf community. We're going to learn so much about how you can start your own leagues, how you can support people in disc golf, all those kinds of things, as well as we're going to learn how to become better at driving. She's got some really good tips that I don't think you've heard on other channels before that is going to help you throw the disc better, which is one of the things we do the most in disc golf. So very, very important. So you're going to want to make sure you stay tuned for that. Her hot take and her ace round has some really good info in there. There's some tips in there that I don't think we've heard for quite a while, if at all. So definitely make sure you stay tuned. Thank you to Lauren for coming on. Without further ado, let's go ahead and bring her on. All righty, everyone. Let's bring on Lauren. Super excited to talk to her. We've been doing it a lot lately, and I think there is so much to learn in today's episode. Lauren, how are we doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited to be here.
And so tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into this episode. Where are you from? Just your everyday life, kind of what you do.
Yeah, so I am based in Central Florida, just north of Orlando. I have lived all over the place in Kansas City and DC. I actually was born in South Carolina. By day, I am a grad student. I'm working towards my PhD in industrial organizational psychology, which nobody has heard of. So feel free to give me the blank look right now. And then, any free moment I get, I am out on the disc golf course, running a club. I am sponsored by discdot and helping on their team. That's my life.
So how long were you in the KC area? I know we're recording this on Thursday Night Football and the Chiefs are playing this week. So are you still a Chiefs fan or ever a Chiefs fan?
I mean, you have to always be a Chiefs fan. Once you've lived in Kansas City, it's kind of required, right? I was there for 2.5 years. I did part of my undergrad degree at the Kansas City Art Institute, and I loved it. Kansas City is fantastic.
Orlando, Florida, that's really convenient for, a disc golfer. I guess, what part of the year is like not ideal? Just raining?
Yeah, honestly, the summer is the worst part, believe it or not, because
Really?
it's just so hot. It's so humid. You get less hours of the day to play, even though there's more sunlight. It's just miserable from 1:00 in the afternoon until at least 5 or 6 in the evening. And yeah, it's hard to play in the summer, even more so than in the fall and winter when there's less light.
Yeah, I definitely tell Horatio that I'm a fall/spring kind of disc golfer. I, take the leaves away, make it a little chilly, a little crisp out there. I'll take that any day over the 110 degrees. But this guy could play out in Arizona during the summer if he wanted.
Dang.
Yeah, I'm as long as I have free time, I guess I don't really care. And looking back at it now, because now I'm super busy and just had a baby, and so it's really hard to get out and play now. So I don't regret going out and playing in 110 or 10 degrees because, it was more about the time than what actually the weather was. So if you guys have the time to play, don't, As long as there's not crazy wind. I don't like the wind, but don't
You weren't
worry
out
about
there
the heat or the
yesterday
cold.
when it
Yeah,
was
no, I was
50,
not
60
out.
mile per hour. You weren't
Yeah,
out there.
I should have.
Yeah, that was really crazy. I tried to do some. I got off late, like always. I was trying to do some putting, and it was definitely an event for sure. But yeah, cool. Well, let's kind of keep going here with this interview, Lauren. So, how did you find disc golf? I think when we were talking earlier, you said that you played for about a year. Kind of got in the game around last May. How did you find disc golf?
So I originally heard of disc golf back when my husband was an undergrad. So while I was living in Kansas City, he was going to school in Rolla, Missouri, middle of nowhere. It's the Missouri University of Science and Technology. But if you've got disc golfers listening, especially collegiate players, they have one of the top teams in the country. We did not know that then. He was a baseball player. So he took me out one day and was like, hey, look at this cool sport that my friends play. And we were chucking discs around like they were baseballs, which is not the way you play. Um, anyway, we forgot about it for a few years, like most people discovered it during the pandemic, and have been hooked ever since.
And so, how long was it before I guess you started taking it seriously or like really getting into it?
Honestly, it's kind of hard to say. I am not athletic. I've never really played a sport before. But I remember shortly after we started playing, I think my husband, so his name is Damien, he could tell that I was getting a little bit frustrated with it. And there was this kind of feeling that like the frustration meant that I was invested. Like if I wasn't frustrated, I wouldn't have cared so much. And after that, he said something, we were talking through it one night that was basically like, I want to see you get really, really good at a sport. And I am someone who loves a challenge. And I kind of took that and ran with it. I was like, all right, I'll show you. Let's freaking go. And rolled from there. So started competing, I think 6 months after I started playing. And
Oh, wow.
yeah.
So that kind of competition with him and almost wanting to prove him wrong or right or whichever direction you wanted to go. How does that translate for you? Does that translate to, hey, while you're at work or studying or whatever, I'm going to get out on the course. I'm going to get those extra reps in. Or was it every time, you guys were playing, were you having a little competition between each other? Like what did that kind of look like for you?
So as much as I love a challenge, I'm actually not that competitive. I want to get better relative to me, but he is someone who is extremely athletic. He's a fantastic player. But he has a lot more like, I don't know, just like body knowledge. He's been playing sports since he could walk. And so there was never a point where I was like, I'm going to beat you. But it was definitely like, I want to get good enough that you're proud of me, that you're impressed with me. All right, let's go. Let's see if I can actually surprise you. And that's really motivating for me. There's nothing more I guess energizing than to hear somebody say like, oh, I didn't expect that from you. I love to hear that.
And so, what did you do to get to that point? What did your training? Did you just go out and play, or did you go on YouTube and start learning, or what did that journey look like?
We play together more often than not. I don't think I've played around by myself, and that's just virtue of being a relatively young woman in a sketchy area. But I do putt by myself, and I am always looking to get involved with other people and make connections with other people that I can play with. After I started the club, I mean, I was playing 4 and 5 times a week, which is more than he was even getting just because of his work schedule. And I watched a little bit of YouTube, but that was more driven by him. He'd see something cool and send it my way. I just spent a long time trying to figure out the body mechanics of what it feels like to play a sport, what it feels like to move my body in space competitively and control it. And that took some time, but it was worth it, or it's still worth it. I'm not there yet, wherever there is.
Yeah, for sure. And so like, I think that's an interesting concept, the not exactly knowing what to do with your body. Like I know my fiance, anytime that Horatio or I will try to give like a tip or something like that, it's met with, don't tell me too much because I don't know what I'm doing with my body and I don't want to overthink it. So like, did you have any of that? Was there too much overthinking? Was there too much going on? How did you decide what was important, what was not important to work on? Kind of walk me through that.
No, yeah. I can totally relate to your fiance. Oh my gosh. The overwhelm of like trying to manage all of the tiny little different things that you have to think about in something as simple as, making a drive, thinking about your feet and your hips and your shoulders and your arms. And he's trying to give me so many tips. And on top of this, I have written about this online. I have a condition called aphantasia, which means that I have no visual imagination whatsoever. So when people say visualize the line or try and make your body look like this, I can't picture my body. I can't picture the line in air. And so that's been something we've had to work around. Like when Damien tries to teach me, he has to literally physically get in front of me and put his body in a position and then move mine into that position. It's been a challenge to overcome. I'm not going to lie.
And so I guess besides that, you can't really do that for like visualizing the line. So what are some other things that you do to help you with that?
It's really anchoring into my environment. So, I can do things. I can, I do yoga, I lift weights. My brain has learned how to compensate for this. Like I just discovered it. I had just discovered that I had this condition a couple of years ago, but it takes a lot more intention in terms of repetition and teaching my body the movement so that I don't have to think about them so much, and using visual cues that are already in the space. So I'm aiming for a particular branch on a particular tree instead of, when the line in the air curves this way and so on. That's how I've started to work around it, but I can't say I have all the answers.
Yeah, I think that's even a good discussion, because I think even for me, and especially for her also, she's kind of the same way, is that it is hard to literally visualize how you want the disc to fly. It's hard to visualize the disc leaving your hand going into the basket. Like those things are difficult if you've never done that before, you don't know how, or any of those things. So I really think that's important. And I know we've talked a little bit about it on this show before, of you want to almost pick that point instead of trying to visualize a line in the sky. Like I definitely try to, this is the exact point on this tree or this grass or whatever, this landing zone. This is where I want the disc to finish, those kinds of things. So I think that's really, really helpful for other people to hear. And so it kind of brings up the question of, I know 99% of disc golfers probably agree with this, but like how important has filming yourself been in a situation like this? Everyone says, you have to film yourself, you have to film yourself, you have to film yourself. So like, when you film yourself, what are you looking for?
Filming myself is absolutely critical. I am looking for the things that I don't notice when I'm going through the motions, because I'm not thinking about, I can't think about my body. I can't think about what I'm wanting to happen. I have to just exist in the moment when I'm throwing it. And of course, a throw is less than 2 seconds. It's just this instant in time. So it's not just filming myself, it's slowing it down and like filming myself in slow motion and looking at all the tiny little tweaks and what my body's doing, things that he sees, he being my husband, not just the camera, that I don't feel until I force myself to think about them. I guess that's really it.
Yeah, no, filming yourself is something that's really crazy, because you'll go out there for a couple of days, for a couple of hours, and practice breaking some kind of habit or whatever, and you'll feel like you have it down, and then you like go and watch the film, and it's like you're still doing it, and it's like mentally, I guess you told yourself that it was, you stopped doing it, and by trying to think about not doing it, you think you're not doing it, but like you watch the film, you're still doing it. But yeah, definitely watching in slow-mo, I feel like helps a lot, because you can actually see like the single movements. Was there ever a time where you were like comparing yourself to other players or trying to emulate your throwing style to someone else?
No, not really. I actually, okay, the only exception to this is when Damien very first taught me how to putt. I was very first getting into the game. He was like, all right, look, women play this too. I want to prove it to you. So he showed me a video of Paige Pierce putting. So for like the first, I don't even know, 4 to 6 months of me trying to figure out how to putt, I would do the like thing where I flick it above my head and then putt. And just because I saw her do it and I thought that's what we were supposed to do.
Yeah.
Eventually I learned that wasn't actually necessary to making the putt, but that's really the only time I've ever tried to emulate anybody else.
Yeah, I definitely feel, especially with the more disc golf is growing, The more YouTube, the more live, the more Instagram content. I definitely feel newer players are trying to be like, oh, I'm going to be Paul Macbeth, or I'm going to be Paige Pierce. I'm going to be this person. You're you. That's who you are. I really think you have to figure out the throwing style that works for you, the putting style that works for you. Like, yes, there are key parts of that have to be relatively the same across the board, but I think what works for you is what's the most important. Like, for example, my fiance does not do an X step. You see 99% of players out there do an X step on tour. She does not do an X step and is getting literally leaps and bounds better from where she was a year ago. So that just goes to show you, not everyone is the same. You know, you guys listening at home, you might be doing something that the other guy or gal hasn't even thought of yet, or vice versa. So I really think just bringing the conversation to a close, filming yourself, super, super duper important, and actually continuing to work on yourself. Film yourself, throw, film yourself again, throw again, make those subtle changes in the moment, because when you're not throwing anymore and then you go home and you watch the tape, it's hard to then go do that if you can't compare it live. So just a couple of thoughts there. So let's kind of keep this moving. So been in the game for a year and a half-ish or something like that. I don't even know what year or day it is anymore. And tell me, how have you gotten involved with I'm pretty sure you said the club earlier, getting more women in disc golf. How have you gotten involved in those kinds of things?
Yeah. One of the things I noticed from the pandemic is that I lost a lot of social connections. So I moved back home to Orlando from where I was going to grad school up in DC. And I lost a lot of that like daily interaction. So as we got involved in disc golf, I very quickly was like, I need more people to play with. We got involved with our local club. The one closest to us is the DeBerry Disc Golf Club, which is just north of Orlando. Tried going to handicaps. We did that for a little while, but there were so few women. I was a little disheartened. There were a couple, and I won't discount them because they were there and they were playing and showing up and doing their best. But I really wanted to play with more and do more. And finally, I realized that nobody else was going to do it. So I started the Central Florida Women's Disc Golf Club. So when I refer to the club, that's what I'm talking about, is my women's club that has grown since April, since we started it. And I have, created this network all over Central Florida. And it's not just me jumping into the community, but me trying to, with blood and sweat and tears and chisel and hammer, carve out a community, a space in this whole disc golf area. I've been really, really intentional about that.
And so what has that club grown to? How big are you guys now?
So on the Facebook group page, which is our home base, we've got about 200 women in there. Week to week, we see, it'll vary. So like last week we had 3. Our biggest week ever, I think we had 17. And it varies in between there. I would say an average week is 6 to 8.
Still say that's pretty gosh darn good. And definitely, the more women that can get out there, the better. I think we have been a very, in my opinion, pretty good space to try to include more women in the sport and grow the sport for women and try to be as inclusive as we can be, because I think that's very important. I don't think the sport can physically grow and more people can play if you're not inclusive in the first place. So let's say, I'm a guy or gal out there and I'm kind of in a situation like that. Let's say I'm in rural Montana and there is no disc golf for women out there. How do I go about setting up a league or a club or something like that?
I think the best place to start is by connecting with other women who have done it. Thank God for the internet and social media. So I could not have done this without reaching out to other women through Instagram. And actually, mentioning Kansas City, the Kansas City Women's Disc Golf Club, one of the women who runs its name is Stephanie. She was fantastic. Had no reason to help me, but she did. Back and forth on Instagram. Here's what you do. Here's a guide. Throw Pink has some great resources. Chicks Chasing Chains has a guide that they will send you that's just step by step. Here's to start a club. So I am certainly not the first person to think of this or try and tackle this problem. So I think step one, no matter where you are, what sort of community you do or don't have around you is reaching out to those that you can, even if they're in a different situation, because they've probably got ideas.
And so what are some things I guess you've done to try and get women out there to the club or to the rounds?
Yeah, I've done so two things. So there's like the recruitment side of it. One of the best tips I got was to create business cards. So I went and got the like free, super simple 200 business cards from Vistaprint with, the name of the club, the times, and our social media links. And I hand them out like candy. And I feel like one of those like, 1970s vacuum salesman that goes door to door. I will chase down women on the course. That sounds really aggressive, but like I will approach them casually and try and not look scary and be like, hi, I'm a girl and I play disc golf. Do you want to play with me? And I have gotten so many women come to the club just from those interactions, just from having a face and somebody saying, hi, this is my name. I'm a real human. Like, I play. Do you want to be my friend? Essentially. But not only that, women have found the cards. I had a woman show up a couple weeks ago and she found our card sitting on a tea pad in a park and just decided to show up. And I think that's the coolest thing ever. So that's been really instrumental in getting women to come out. The other side of it, though, is I will do just about anything to make them comfortable. So if they want to bring their partner or significant other, if they need to bring their kids, if they don't feel like playing for, money or high stakes or whatever, fine, just come walk with us. It's been a balance to try and figure out, because I do have some more experienced players who like don't love the casual vibe. So I'm trying to find that balance in there. So we have like novice nights, and then we have our regular handicaps nights, and then we have travel leagues where we go around the area to new courses so more people can get to us more easily. Anything I can think of, I've been trying, and I'm willing to try new things. So if y'all have ideas, by all means.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. And I think that's not a stale league. Like, I think that's good leadership up top, allowing for more people to come into the league instead of, because, you'll have those old timers leagues, not literal old folk, but the mentality of this is what we do. We play Thursdays at 7 and we're not changing it. You know what I'm saying? Like, there are definitely, we all know that league out there that's like that. So I really do appreciate that. So that kind of leads me to my question is, so much good has gone for this group. What's next? What's the goal for 2022, 2023? Like, what do you want to achieve next?
Oh man, I got big plans. I've had, when I was first starting the club, it was one of those like, can I do this? I don't know. All right, fine. If I'm going to do it, let's shoot for the stars. So yeah, in January, the 16th, I don't know when this will be released, but we're gonna be having our very first clinic, a women's clinic. And we've got a couple pros who are going to come out and work directly with just a group of women in the area and help teach them. We will be running, I will be running my first tournament as a TD in April, which will be right after the club's 1-year anniversary. So we'll have a big party for that. And I just want to keep bringing more people in. I want to institute a juniors night. I want to get more days on the calendar, especially during summer. You can really get more evening rounds in and get weekend rounds in. I want to get more people involved, like on a board type situation. And not just because I don't want to be the only person doing everything, but I want others to have a voice and, start talking about how we can do things like a shenanigans round or have a triples round or a putting league, or there's so many different directions we could go. And I think the possibilities are endless if I can just get women to keep coming back.
Yeah, no, that's really awesome. I mean, it's going really great so far. I know because we have a local women's club here, and it's definitely, they're big on the side of bringing in your like partners. And so they'll do like, hey, bring your partners, and they'll do kind of their own league night in combination. So like the woman will start on hole 1 and the guys, they'll go off and do their own thing, and they'll start like on hole 9 or whatever. So they'll each play around, like they get to play. Because I mean, for the most part, I mean, I feel like kind of usually it's like the husband somehow that got like the wife into it. So usually, if woman's playing, her husband usually plays. So I feel like that definitely gets a lot of women out, is like if they don't feel like they're totally alone, like, their husband's out there somewhere and they're both getting to, have some fun and meet some new people, but kind of doing it on their own, some space as well. So I feel like that's great.
Absolutely. And one of the first things I did when I was building out our calendar was I went and found all the local clubs, their calendars. So we have quite a few clubs in the area. The DeBerry Club, there's a Lake County Club, the Orlando Disc Golf Club. I pulled all of their calendars to see when they were playing because one, I didn't want to step on toes and like get in anybody's way and piss off the locals, to be perfectly honest. But also I know that, what you're saying is great, but also like if the husband's out there playing and they've got kids at home, somebody's got to stay home with the kids, and that's probably going to be the wife. So like I was actually more inclined to find something that wasn't overlapping to try and mitigate some of that. I know that's a big thing on the tournament side where a lot of women will give up competing in tournaments because somebody's got to stay home with the kids.
I think that's definitely a tricky kind of tightrope to walk, but obviously sounds like you've been doing a great job so far, and hopefully some other people can take what they're listening to right now and maybe even apply it to their own town, city, village, wherever they're at, across the world, across the country. But I think that's been a really good discussion. If anyone, I guess real quick while we're on it, maybe plug your Instagram right here. If anyone has any questions, if you're cool with them reaching out to you, I don't know, you don't have to.
No, yeah, absolutely. I would love nothing more than for somebody to listen to this episode and reach out to me and say like, all right, how do I do this? My Instagram is under low throws, LO_throws. I am super responsive on there. I'm on Facebook, but it's harder to catch me. So you don't need to, don't try that one. I would just say that if you're thinking about it, stop. Just stop thinking about it and just do it. And all it takes is showing up, and all it takes is making a decision. And maybe I'm underselling some of the struggle. And I know people have a million reasons not to do hard things, but yeah, even if that decision is, hey, I'm going to reach out to Lauren, like, please, I would love to talk to you.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you for that, Lauren. Let's kind of talk a little education here real quick. So before the show, when we were kind of talking about what are some strengths to your game, you were talking about having that natural power in your drives, being able to crush out there. So I kind of want to talk about that. So I think something that a lot of people struggle with, myself included, is when you try to throw hard, that's when bad things happen. And a lot of people have termed it muscling on the disc. So I kind of want to start this off real quick, just kind of by explaining, what are you doing in your drive that maybe other people aren't doing that's allowing you to harness more of that natural power?
So I wouldn't say I have figured that out entirely. Something I've been working on a lot recently is disc selection, and not getting overly attached to throwing the exact same disc every time, every condition, no matter what. I mean, we all know the wind plays a factor, but also things like, the quality of the tee pad and how much room you have to do a run up. If I'm going to try and crush on something, but, there's a slight downhill slope on the tee pad, that's going to throw me off. So maybe I reach for something a little more stable and don't over muscle on the disc, trying to use that form over power approach more than anything. And that's not to say that, like I've got some huge arm or anything. I think it's just, this is what gets me excited about the game, is like, I love seeing how far I can get that disc to go. And the motivation of it has made me pay more attention to it.
Yeah, no, I love that you said, disc selection. I think a lot of times the correct disc selection or the incorrect disc selection will kill people's confidence as far as their arm speed or their strength, as far as they can throw, because they'll buy, the signature discs or the Tour Series or like stuff that's really, really way too high speed, and they'll try to throw it and they'll get discouraged and they're like, oh, well, I can't throw that far. So instead they try to start doing funky stuff and, throwing flexes with it or whatnot, instead of sticking just to like the lighter speed discs or whatnot, and trying to learn that form correctly. Did you ever struggle with that, or do you find yourself doing that?
I was very fortunate to have Damien's guidance. The very first disc that he ever gave me was like a 136 gram super beaten Valkyrie. So there was never a point where, he's handing me like a max weight Wraith or something crazy, a destroyer that's really just going to discourage me. He was really adamant when I started playing, when he saw that I was interested. Like, I was throwing diamonds for a really long time until I started turning them over. And I've just slowly inched up as my arm speed has grown and I think you're right that if I hadn't done that, I might have gotten a little bit more discouraged on the front end. I think that's a really good point. And I'm glad that I didn't. Um, yeah, you're making me rethink that order I placed earlier today for those new Halo diamonds that just got released. And like, maybe I should not have done that.
So that kind of brings me to, because I've got a couple of buddies who are pretty new to the sport, who they almost compare it to regular golf. They want to throw the drivers off the tee pad. That's what I have to throw off the tee pad. I have to throw the driver, and you'll see typically what will happen to newer players is the disc will go up and then it will fall to the left very hard, or there's just not much control there, or they're trying to throw it so hard that, all these different factors. So it's one of those things of, how do you convince somebody or even yourself to throw those lower speed discs until you've actually learned them and turned them over? Is that just a mentality that you were able to stick with? What was there pressure to be like, I need to move up to a Wraith? Like, what was that like for you?
I think because I am so not competitive naturally, that I was never, reaching for my husband's discs or looking for the higher speed thing. When we take out newbies to learn the game for the first time, we give them discs. And very rarely do we give them a driver. Or if we do, it's like, the starter kit leopard. And it's just limiting their options. But I think when playing with new players, especially if you know them well enough to kind of pass that ego barrier that sometimes gets in the way, just showing them that, like, look, this is what I can do with my disc when I know what I can do with it. If I tell you to do something with yours, it's because I want to help you. I want to see you succeed because I love this sport and I want to grow it. And even just blatantly having that conversation that I love you, but sort of thing. I think that's really powerful in those sorts of situations.
And I think another I have found, with new players who are trying to teach people is to get down on their level and be yeah, just become an equal and maybe not take out your entire, if you have a car or a bag, not take out your entire cart if you're going to go play with them or whatnot. I had a buddy and he was learning, and I would hand him these discs and be like, well, like, why do you get that one and you're going to get those? Like, you have a lot more. And so what I started to do was I would take my wife's bag, which is smaller, it can just carry like 3 or 4, and all I had in there was like putters and a few mids. And I'd be like, if I'm going to be making you throw a putter, that's what I'm going to be throwing, to show you that I'm not making you just to make you look funny, or I'm not belittling you, because I feel like that's a lot of time what they feel like, so I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to show you that it can be done. Because like, if you're telling them to throw a putter or a mid because they don't have the arm speed yet, but you can't even throw a putter or mid correctly, then yeah, like, I'm not going to listen to you either. Give me the driver. But if you can show them you can throw a putter 320 feet, they're probably going to listen to you, because they're going to be like, wow, like, he knows what he's talking about. She knows what she's doing. So I feel like that's a tip that I would give to anyone out there. If you have someone you want to introduce and, you don't want to make them feel less, get rid of your bag. Don't take your cart, 20 discs to the course, and just take 3 or 4 and just play with that and make it even more casual.
Love that. I love that tip. We'll normally do, a parse down bag situation or just a handful of discs, but to specifically take out the same types of discs that they're throwing, that's a great idea. I love that.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I'm gonna have to try out there, Horatio. So good tip there, big fella. So let's talk a little bit about, in that form, right? What is, I don't know, maybe 3 things that you've noticed watching and filming yourself, 3 things that you saw as mistakes early on that you've since then corrected?
Yeah, I think like 90% of players out there, I do the rounding thing, reaching back behind my body. And I think women are even more likely to do this because of the shape of our chests. And that's something I've been actively working on. I just learned about the box drill. Somebody was talking about this on YouTube. I don't know. I'm excited to try it and hopefully continue working on that. My timing is something that I am still trying to figure out. That those like mental cues of when to release the disc. Been working through some grip lock stuff. That is not fun, extremely frustrating. But I think if I can get the timing right, that's something that I would like to continue pushing through. And that's just coming from watching those slow-mo videos again and again to see exactly when my foot's hitting the ground. Um, and other than that, it's just disc selection, reading the wind, reading the slope, and making sure that I'm going with something that matches the situation. And I think something that I've discounted up until this last tournament that I played in, I was really, really tired going into it. I was actually choosing lower speed, lighter discs, not just because of the conditions around me, but because I was tired and like I wasn't feeling great that day. So it wasn't just, what's happening on the course, but it's what's happening in my body and in my head. And that's been really powerful to squashing that ego, like we were talking about, and making better choices.
Yeah, it's funny how much, players get in their heads, especially with, like discs. And I feel we talked about this a lot, like carrying so many discs. And I feel like a lot of times, like you just get in your head so much. Like somebody will lose a disc and like, oh, well, like I can't make this shot anymore. Like I don't have that disc anymore. Or maybe the wind is a little bit different. And the disc that you throw on every single hole, you're like, oh, well, I can't throw that here. And it's like, again, set inside of their head so much instead of just focusing, on those fundamentals and learning to throw in the different conditions and stuff, as opposed to a disc is going to save them. I feel like what happens a lot of times. But what's, I guess, something, in your learning, that was kind of like a light bulb moment or something that, like, wow, like you felt like you skipped, maybe months in training.
I wish I could say I had one of those moments. I really don't think I really don't think I've had like a full on light bulb moment. Maybe when Damien was trying to teach me how to throw Anheuser and like control the angle of the disc. But even then, we just like struggled for half an hour and I went home. And then the next time I tried it, it felt a lot better. But like in the moment, there was no light bulbs. It was awful.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of players have had that. And I mean, I also think it kind of goes back to what you were talking about a little bit about your body where it's literally sometimes hey chief, I'm just not feeling it today. This is not going to be my best, so maybe I am going to disc down. And that's been something that I've been working on. I know listening to all these guests telling me that I should throw mids and telling me that I should stop throwing so many discs. And so I'm that guy. So I'm the guy who's I guess listening to their advice and I'm trying to work on it. And something that I've been noticing is that I can literally throw my buzz just as far as some of my distance drivers if I really want to. So like, I think that's a really good point is that there's not always going to be that light bulb moment. Maybe it's a progression of little mini light bulb moments over time that allows you to then look back and be like, golly, a year ago, I was throwing 200 feet. Now I'm able to throw 300 with a putter, those kinds of things. So I guess my last question here kind of on form and, distance and drives and that kind of stuff is there any drill that you're doing right now that you think is the most helpful for someone else to be doing?
I have to say putting. I am trying to do more and more putting practice right now because I think my last few tournaments, I have given up so many gimme putts. And whether that's from the mental game side of it or from the actual situation, whatever it is, my goal is to get to that place of, you hear people talk about make it so you can't miss. So your body does it even if the rest of you, your mind, your disc, whatever isn't there, make it so you can't miss. So I think just putting practice in general is where I'm at right now.
And is any of that, you're sponsored by discdot, is any of that, being sponsored by them and having kind of this feeling of being an ambassador and feeling like, I'm sponsored, I need to get my putting game up, and like you kind of extra boost?
Totally. It absolutely is. Of course I want to be a better putter just because I want to be a better player, but like being a part of the discdot team, I am so honored to be on this team. I absolutely love the team that is being built. Rick and Natasha are fantastic humans. And I want to make them proud. I mean, even last year, I saw growth in my game, but every time, I'd play in a tournament and I'd dink a putt, I'd be like, dang it, they know I'm sponsored by discdot. Hope Rick and Natasha didn't see that. So yeah, that's absolutely a motivator. I wanna represent this team that I love so much.
Yeah, absolutely. This is my first year being on the team, and let me tell you what, folks, this is a pretty awesome team, and the pros that they're getting, the AMs that they're getting, like this is going to be a name that you are going to be hearing for a long time. So let's all collectively save ourselves some trouble and some time, let's go to www.disc.usa.com. Find a color you like. Use promo code Chain Clankers, save yourself 10%. I'm telling you, it literally works. I've been using it for the last, I don't know, golly, maybe 4, 5-ish months, something like that. Going out putting every single night, it really does help, and it does give you that more confidence. So if you don't believe me, if you think I'm silly and stupid, go try it yourself and we'll see what happens. But I think we've been having a fantastic discussion so far, but let's kind of keep things moving here. Let's get into your hot take. What is your disc golf hot take?
So my disc golf hot take, and this is probably not a like brand new hot and fresh and spicy hot take, but I think that the sport as a whole, because we are growing at the rate that we are, we have a fantastic opportunity to break the mold from what other sports have done in terms of representation and accessibility, inclusion, and even like diversity efforts. I think we have an awesome opportunity in front of us as a community. I'm saying we as the entire disc golf community to make a difference and do something different. And I don't think that we're 100% taking advantage of that opportunity. And I would love to see more efforts and more attention brought to that, and more intentionality from not just players, but from companies, from media companies, from personalities, from pros. I want to see more people speaking up about this, about making the sport inclusive to as many people as absolutely possible.
Yeah, I know. I think already there's definitely like a great foundation, especially from the outside. It's very, it's very welcoming. You see all sorts of ages and people out there, all shapes and sizes and whatever, disc golf is super friendly, but I think there's definitely I mean, I know we've had, league nights, and in the year when I started, there would be a ton of people out there, and not even just, just women, but just other players, new players. And I would never see a lot of people come back, or I would see people come once or another time, and they would never come back. I don't know whether it was they didn't feel comfortable, or whether, it was too much competition or what, but there's definitely, I feel like as it's growing, there's definitely more characters and more competitiveness and more ego coming into the sport than I guess what people were used to when it was small and more close knit. And I think a lot of those, people that have been around for a long time definitely need to speak up and definitely try to hold disc golf to what it's, true, just being like a friendly sport and welcoming of everyone.
For sure. Yeah.
And I'd say, I guess, before we go to the ace round, one challenge or question I have back on this is, you're saying, we need to be doing these things. Can you maybe outline, maybe just in a little bit more detail, like what is one small thing that, Horatio and I could do, the podcast could do, random Joe on the course could do? Like what are some tangible things that maybe some people can do tomorrow that could help with this?
Yeah, I think on a one-on-one basis, it becomes a little bit easier. Y'all are doing something fantastic by even like, this sounds a little braggy, but by bringing me on, by allowing a woman into your space to talk and have a voice and a platform. I think in clubs, in leagues, continually offering space and platform to women, to minority members, to juniors, to people who are new to the space, and not just assuming they have less to bring because they don't know how things are done, because they don't know that we've always done it at 7:00 on Thursdays. Being really intentional about that. And the other thing is speaking up. So anytime you see somebody, a woman, a person of color, a disabled person speaking up and saying, hey, I want to be a part of this, back them up. As the people that we are, the attributes that we have a lot of power that comes with that. And just by saying, yes, I agree, that can be a really powerful step that you can take. Yeah. Amplifying, I guess, in one word, amplifying those around you.
Yeah, no, I love that. And no, I think that's something that would just make the community stronger and people, hopefully continue like passing it forward kind of thing. But with that, let's get to the ace round. First question. Let's say you got a lady that came out to your club league night and she fell in love with the sport. She doesn't have any discs. What 3 discs are you going to recommend she goes out and buys?
So I love recommending the Pure. I think it's a great neutral putter. I think having a Mako is, again, super neutral, and then a diamond. If they've got to have a driver, the diamonds are pretty, it's understable and easy to throw.
Yeah, one of my buddies who has kind of sort of played disc golf, kind of stopped, kind of getting back into it. Hopefully he'll move to Wichita so he can play a lot more. He got a diamond, and so far he said it has been very, very good for his game. So that is definitely a really good shout. Our next question that we have for you, what is the favorite course you have played and one course you would love to play?
I'm going to give a shout out to 2 courses that are my favorites that I've played because they're both amazing. The first is the best course in Central Florida that I have played, hands down, is Lake Hiawatha Preserve at Champions Point in Claremont, Florida. It is like top 10, top 20 in the state. It's phenomenal. If you're in the area for any reason, go play it. The other is Bradford, which is north of Charlotte. And it was the first time I played a course in the fall, and it was beautiful. And so it forever has a place in my heart.
And then one you would like to play?
Oh my gosh. All of them? Can I say all of them?
Yeah. There's some really cool ones out there. Yeah.
Something like really high on a mountain in Europe. Like, sign me up. Let's go.
We'll just go with, I think, Yarva, the one that all the pros say.
Of course. It's got to be Yarva, right? Yeah.
All right. One tip you would give to yourself when you just started playing?
Slow down. I'm a very fast player. I am always thinking ahead to the next shot. I think the best tip that I got, and I wish I had listened to sooner, was to slow the flip down.
Yeah, that's such a good tip. Like I know, especially when my fiance started, it slowed down. Same thing, Horatio. Like I know when you and I kind of really got into it, it was that we have to slow down, have to go to I'm literally blanking on it, not the X step, literally the standstill. Slow your whole body down. You got to learn to crawl before you can learn to walk, before you can learn to run, all those things. That's such a good tip. Our 4th question we have for you, what is your favorite memory playing disc golf?
Just back in October, I got my first ace, and that is top of the list. Yeah. It was an amazing moment on a hole that like should not be possible to ace. It felt like a fluke, and I would say that it was, except for the fact that, Damian was caddying for me. We had planned the shot. We stood there and talked about it. His grandma was there with us and had been walking with us all day. She left right before I made it. So we got to call her afterwards and be like, guess what happened? It was amazing. I would not trade that moment for anything.
Yeah, first rounds are first aces definitely great, and amazing. Hopefully I just hit mine this year, and hopefully there's more, for everyone. Aces that's why we do the sport, a lot of holes, you can't ace, but putting it in the basket is the reason we play. So when you get in one, it's awesome. But last question we got for you today is, what is the biggest mistake you see new players make?
More often than not, it's holding themselves back. Not wanting to come out and be a part of the community because they don't think they're good enough yet. I have so many women who come out and think that they are terrible players. They don't want to play with anybody. They, before every throw, they're like, please don't judge me. This is going to be awful. And then they bomb, and it's just because they've been playing alone, or they've only been playing with MA1 guys, or whatever it is. I think putting yourself out there is always going to improve your game, even if it feels scary at the beginning.
Yeah, and I think that's just a great life tip overall. Lauren, this has been such a fun show. I definitely am going to be able to walk away from this with some action items. So super excited about that. One more time before we get out of here, where can people connect with you on social media?
Instagram is the best place to find me. It's Low Throws, LO_throws.
Well, thank you so much for coming on tonight. Thank you so much for taking the time, and best of luck to you, with the club. And hopefully this off season goes great and you can get people out there, some putting league or something like that going. And yeah, nothing but the best for you guys out there.
Thank you so much. Y'all are awesome, and I have appreciated this opportunity and had so much fun.
Thank you for listening to the Chain Clankers podcast. Make sure you follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Chain Clankers, and hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening to us from so you never miss another episode.